Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, all from wherever you guys are dialing in. Let's give it 5 more seconds for people to join in, and then we can kick off. All right, let's get started with the session. If your AI made a decision that wiped out customer trust overnight, would you know before the headlines did? That's a question I want you to take away throughout the talk this afternoon. I'm Aditya Kashyap. I've spent my career at the intersection of innovation and governance and financial services for a majority of my career. I've seen incredible AI projects soar, and I've seen them crash, not because the tech failed, because trust did. Trust is the currency of AI adoption, and the only way to earn it and keep it is governance. Not the red tape kind of governance, but the kind that accelerates innovation while keeping you credible at the same time. Today, I want to show you why governance is the missing piece in AI strategies and how getting it right can make you and your organization unstoppable. Let me start the screen, and there you go. So the first slide, when you hear AI strategy, most people think of the usual suspects, right? Think of latest models, data pipelines, hiring top tier talent, you name it, right? But there's one piece that almost is missing. That's governance. And without governance, the adoption simply slows, if not halts, to a grind. Investors start asking you harder questions, and trust, most importantly, can disappear overnight. Governance isn't like a dusty compliance binder you dust off once a year. It's the backbone that makes every AI initiative is built to earn and keep trust from day one. I call it ethics by design. If it's not ingrained and inbuilt in AI strategies and methodologies that you're adopting, then you're doing something drastically wrong. And there's the thing that AI isn't really a technical matter. It's a leadership responsibility in this day and age. If we want AI to drive real, lasting value, governance has to sit at the core of the strategy and not at the periphery. We are way past the fun experiment stages of the AI adoption so far, right? And it's time that we are raising the stakes to a paramount tenfold, if not a 20-fold adoption rate at this point in time. These systems now run inside our most critical processes, approving loans, diagnosing diseases, routing trades. The stakes couldn't be higher. A failure today isn't a minor glitch, it's front page news, it's regulatory bodies calling and trying to assess your processes, your tools, and kind of ripping it open. It's investors reconsidering their confidence, and what's worse is trust failing all along with no catapults or nothing, no lifelines to hold you with. And we've all seen how a biased model or unpredictable output can erode brand reputation overnight. Governance isn't a guardrail that keeps AI from crossing into dangerous territory. It is the only guardrail that there is. Without it, you're not risking compliance violations, you're risking the trust capital that fuels your entire business. And the sooner we realize and act on it, the better. Governance doesn't have a natural home. It's often viewed as something that slows us down. It's something that gets lost between compliance teams, tech teams, and business strategies somewhere there. Leaders assume somebody must be on top of it, but more often than not, nobody is. That's when governance becomes patchy, right? It becomes reactive and too late to stop the damage. If you are in a leadership seat, what which most of you in the talk are right now, the buck starts with you and stops with you. You are the torchbearers of ethical design thinking in AI. You are the ones who can mitigate damage. You are the ones who can create scalable policies that will outlast you or the AI tool that you're looking into. And that is what will actually create the cultural and moral and the technical fabric of your organization. Skipping governance is like skipping the seatbelt because you think the drive is short. Sure, that might be fun until you're not, you know. Costs are real, innovation pipelines stall, customer trust wavers, and boards get pretty much uneasy all the time. And once trust is gone, the road back is long, expensive, and uncertain, right? And I've seen companies spend years, spend millions trying to claw back credibility they could have preserved with a fraction of that effort upfront, you know. So if I was to give you a takeaway, this talk is think about policy, strategy, governance as one unit in AI, as a part of AI. Don't think of AI as a technical tool that can be salvaged at a later point. There is no later point. The model is continuously learning, unlearning, and relearning itself. So the buck starts with us, it stops with us. As leaders, we are the ones who should lead the initiatives and think of policies that will help us govern, if not mitigate losses that AI could compound have, because it's not a reliable strategy. Your AI model is as good as your data points are, and if your data isn't that good, then you need data governance also in place that goes part and parcel with the AI models that you're trying to run on them. Now let's flip the narrative, right? Enough of the negative speak, importance of governance. We get it, right? So what's next, Aditya, right? Now let's flip the narrative. The governance, when built into the DNA of your AI strategy, isn't a brake, it's actually an accelerator. And I'll explain why. It minimizes rework, clears regulatory hurdles, and signals operational maturity. Yes, absolutely. But more importantly, trust gets customers on board faster, and customer adoption drives revenue. When the governance transforms from compliance costs into one of the most reliable growth engines, you are looking at sustained competitive advantage at that point in time. You have reached that pinnacle charter territory where you have earned trust and you know what responsibility is. That comes part and parcel with your brand name, with your tools, your techniques, and all your infrastructure as a nutshell. At that point in time, you're not creating culture, you're creating legacy. And that is where you want to be, at that particular cusp where customers are, they know as a part of parcel, if XYZ enterprise has implemented something, they have thought this through end to end. There's no question about that. They must have done something right there. So we will back them up. The customers rally behind you. And that's a force to be reckoned with in any ecosystem. You might be in healthcare, you might be in financial services. If you put clients first and lead with exceptional ideas, you will have the backing that you need eventually. And it takes time to build. And that credibility, it is absolutely your most prized possession, let alone your market caps, dollar values, those come secondary. All right, now this slide talks about a flywheel, right? I want you to imagine a flywheel, right? The flywheel says governance builds trust, trust drives adoption, adoption generates value, value attracts investment, and that investment feeds into stronger governance. That's where your customers are crawling behind you. This is the whole ecosystem that you're trying to aspire to achieve by having good governance of AI in place. And this cycle compounds over time, creating unstoppable momentum. But here's the catch: break trust once, and that flywheel will come to a halt. It has to be a continuous and iterative process. It cannot be just a one time effort wherein you're trying to build trust. Trust is gained over time and respect is earned. Right? You have to be continuously building yourself, learning, unlearning, and relearning as and more when the LLM models advance, right? And getting it spinning again, that's a long and slow climb. Like Rome wasn't built in a day. You won't be able to solve for all the problems in one shot. You see, that's the idea behind it. And nobody is asking you to solve for it yesterday. but we need to be strategic about it and not rush things through. Here is a 6A framework that I really love and I wanted to share with you guys, right? First, align with your business goals so it's not just a compliance checkbox, right? Then you have to appraise. Appraise, what does that entail? Appraise risks and performance continuously, not just once a year, not just quarterly. Your model is training itself continuously. This has to be an uphill battle. You continuously are uh, revamping and reassessing your policies and your risk frameworks. Things have to change. You no longer have quarterly risk assessment cycles anymore. That time to market is much faster, and that MVP is realized much sooner. The sooner we understand and tailor our processes, the better we are at it. Audit. Audit is the backbone. For transparency, you can't stand behind your AI decisions, right? You have to audit for transparency. Audit so that everybody's on the same page, they understand how it works, right? They are having clear accountability. It cannot be, oh, Aditya can pass the buck because AI gave him an answer, so it's AI's fault. No, the responsibility, the onus still lies on the human element of things. There is no replacing judgment, moral conscience, decision making, risk mitigation, risk assessments. Those are still with the human conscious mind. The minute you think you can replace everything and automate everything, that is where you are absolutely wrong, and that is where AI can go absolutely rogue, and you would not even know that it is harming you, and it's then becomes a crisis management situation you don't want you or your enterprise to be in, right? The next aspect is adapt. Adapt as markets, technologies, and regulations shift. You need to have an open mind and you need to understand and preempt what is happening in the ecosystem or in your industries that you are dealing with. I am trying to make it a generic talk so that whatever industry you are in, you are able to see AI not for the tool or technology it is, but for the enabler it could be, right? I'm asking you to think from it from a strategic competitive advantage perspective. I don't want you to be an early adopter or a laggard. I just want you to have a perfect cusp on when you or your enterprise is ready. You know, we are all trying to jump on a herd mentality. Everything you're trying to slap on an AI label to, that is not the idea that I want to leave you with. You have an AI component when it's required and when it's important for you to have one. The next aspect here is assure. Assure stands for when assure with independent validation so others don't have to take your word for it. Best AI is when it is intuitive and when you can trust it. Have data structures, data models in place that give you clean data, that data that you have trained and you have absolute authority and command over. If you are using open LLM models, understand the risks that come with it too. Just don't blindly absorb a data set without trying to engineer it yourself and trying to train it with your data, because the customers are yours, not the AIs. They trust you, your brand, your product that you have built. That's the idea behind it. And last but not the least, act decisively when issues arise. Act with grace, act with urgency, and act with absolute care, because it is the way you act and your moral responsibility when things go wrong is what will determine how AI ethics can or cannot be trusted in the near future. It will be our actions that determine the importance of these, right? The tool is only as good as we make it to be. Whether we want it to be harming us or whether we want it to be enabling us, that's a question that we have to ask ourselves, and whether we are prepared for it. This slide talks about overgovernance, right? Is there something called overgovernance? How do you balance innovation with safeguards in place, right? You know, so overgovernance, you'll choke with your ability to innovate. That's absolutely correct. Anything excess is going to slow you down. That's not the idea behind it. You have under governance that will really tarnish your trust and credibility, and it's a matter of time. It's a ticking time bomb when things really take a heinous turn, and the model, does you don't govern the model, the model governs you in that circumstance. It's not a great idea or a great place to be in. The art is to find the perfect sweet spot and a balance, and that's the job of leadership, right? That's where you as leaders, that's why I wanted to give this talk to begin with. We need to create a culture where we are communicating as an industry, as a unit to understand what works. Because it is not just a company wide advantage or disadvantage. This is actually here to stay. AI is here to stay, and it will govern the moral fabric of our generations to come, right? And it is up on us whether we are being morally responsible with our AI engines, ecosystems. That is what will set the tone for future generations to come. Yes, there will be nefarious actors. There always are, who will try to use it for nefarious activities. But we have to counter them, right? The buck starts on us and stops on us. If you remember my slide 3, I want to kind of connect it back there. We are the engineers and we are the architects of this. If we don't do it right, then we are doing something very, very wrong. And right means understanding what is wrong as well, right? It's a two-way street. You have to understand and have guardrails in place so that it is secure, it is compliant, and it is trustworthy. All right. This is my final slide here. I wanted to recap basically if you came in late or if you have heard my talk. If there were 3 takeaways I want you to get from this talk, number one is AI is here to stay. Right? Let's not have two doubts about it. Right? If it's here to stay, how we navigate through it as leaders, it is our responsibility. That's number one. My number 2 takeaway is have AI ethics by design, not as an aftermath, not before, not during. Start with the process of AI ethics inbuilt from the very beginning, day one. If you have that, you have morality built into your systems. It is not just a black and white, it's also operating in gray areas. Then you automatically are empowering your teams to use it, but use it as a tool, not as a standalone judgment mechanism, right? Last but not the least, if I could leave you with, is be actively involved in the governance ecosystems, right? What do I mean by that? Governance ecosystems is when things go wrong, how are you kind of counteract that particular damage control? There has to be grace and there has to be accountability. Accountability not from a leadership standpoint, right from the top to the bottom, right? If you're seeking and using AI is not a substitute for human intellect and intervention. It is a compounding effect to your ability. It is not a replacement of your ability. That has to be made clear. And that messaging has to come from the leadership level, right? If it's not there, then we are doing something very, very wrong. And we are empowering our teams to create shortcuts. And the decision-making burden is no longer in balance in that circumstance. And I would like to close my talk. I hope this was informative for you. And I would like to close my talk with a podcast quote I had learned. I'm not able to recall what it was, but the quote really hung with me. It's very beautifully articulated and it fits very beautifully in this AI ecosystem and governance space. And the quote is, always do the harder right over the easier wrong. Right? Always do the harder right over the easier wrong, and never let a wishbone grow where your backbone should be. Right? In a nutshell, it's if it's easy, it's never right, and if it's right, it's never easy. We choose our technologies. It is our responsibility to do what is right by our clients, by our customers, and by um, our people who have trust in us, by our governments, for example, and our regulators. We need to be very good counterparts with them, and we need to work with them, because we are no longer at a point where we can go into damage control and then enable laws. We have to have the foresight to envision what AI could do and then create laws accordingly, right? And that's the idea I want to leave you with. I will now open it for questions for the next 10 minutes. And I see a few in there. I'll take a few questions. If you guys have questions, please pop it in the Q&A chat. I'll really appreciate it. And I'm happy to take a few right now. Um, Thema has a good question. With the recent introduction of AI agents and reduced human oversight in such process, how would these phases of AI governance shift? Absolutely. There is definitely a shift in terms of time to market on how you're addressing them. And plus, who is building these AI agents? It is us who's building it. What pieces of the process can be automated and what needs to be with the human oversight? That clarity has to be established from the very beginning. That is why I was mentioning AI ethics by design, right? If you don't have that, and if you are trying to automate everything because it saves costs or it's quicker time to market without having the morality built into it, then you're operating in the black or white areas. And if it goes wrong, there is no mechanism to test it because everything is automated. It has to be a beautiful balance. It's like a dancing act wherein the absolute authority and the signing off capability still is with the human mind. The AI agent can help you get the answers, but the validation, the approval, and the execution lies with the individual itself. That should not be taken away under any circumstance. I hope that helps. That is how the governance is going to be shifting in the near future. We are going to be having a balancing act on technology machines on one end and versus human intellect on the other. And it's not one versus the other, it's one and the other. That's the idea where what I want the people to kind of get away from this. The next question that we have here is, what are the best practices you identified to implement and track governance? Number one is, think strategically about your AI tools and capabilities. Is AI really required? What is at stake here, right? What kind of decision making is with the AI? What kind of output is with the AI? How am I training the model? Is the model heuristics and biases, am I taking those into account? Those edge cases, those even though they're edge cases, but they are impactful in some way, shape, or form. How am I training my models? The data I'm training my models, am I 100% confident that is the perfect data set for this? That is not adulterated, it does not have any nefarious injections in it, or it is absolutely the purest form it should be, right? How much stress testing have I done on this? How many clients can it perform with without trying to kind of go in a tizzy and spit out all these incorrect values, things of that sort, right? That is also another important aspect for me, right? And Another aspect is around governance structures. I need oversight on it and quicker time to market. Resolution has to be not like weekly, bi-weekly, it has to be there and then. If there is a report that has been filed that, hey, there's a bias in this data set, this particular value is not correct, you actually investigate it there and then. Don't jump the gun to productionize something because it is ready. If it is not tested thoroughly and you're not confident about it, do not productionize it. Keep on delivering and developing it in your sandbox or your dev environments, lower environments. Do not rush the AI adoption and productionizing things. That is what I would say in terms of governance. How trusted are third-party governance functions? Monitor Credo. It's too early to tell. We have not really been using them as much. But I'll be very honest with you. So we are still at a very nascent stage of productionizing these. We are still training models and all. Um, I unfortunately will not be able to give you a proper answer because I have not given them an honest shot myself so far. So this is a very good question, absolutely. But having third-party governance does not absolve you from the results of it, right? It's still your data and your findings and your customers, so you have to take accountability. I do not know how good it would be, and also it also lies whether I want to have them in my ecosystem with my sensitive data sets. I work in a financial services industry. It comes with a lot of bells and whistles and a lot of regulatory oversight. It may not be as easy for me to onboard a third-party governance tool set onto my world pretty much. So, but it's too early to tell. Of course, it's still in a very nascent stage, and we'll see how the cookie crumbles. But at this point in time, I will not be able to kind of answer that piece of it. But good question, Ross. John asks me, as investors, how do we assess the value of governance aspect of early stage AI tech startups? Is there any recommended methodology? This is a fantastic question. Uh, for early stage startups and all, I would always recommend you trying to get feedback from their clients, customers, who are actually use the product. If they haven't, they are that early that they don't have a client base, then try to do a demo and test it out, but also look at their governance structure in place. How involved is the founder within the governance structures? Is there AI ethics inbuilt into it? What are the guardrails, principles that they press into? Like, this is uncharted territory, or no, that's where the model will not ask you questions. Kind of a scenario. Ask them edge case questions around responsibility of the LLM. How smart is it to detect nefarious activities if they have done any tests around it? What is their stress test count so far? How does the algorithm really work and detect? What's the data set it has been trained on? These things are the ones. But early stage startups, I mean, I know they're you want to get in early, you want to capitalize on it, but I would rather say if they have a tried and tested record a little bit, that is more advisable to consult with rather than absolutely raw, a fresh product right out of the door. I would rather say, John. Jennifer asks, can you describe the difference between having AI policy and AI governance? Yes. Governance is oversight of the policy. Policies are frameworks, they are rules, they are written in nature most of the time. Like HR policy has, you have, your vacation policy, things of that sort. But that has been opined on, signed off by a governance committee that sits and deciphers what policies should be enacted. And if there are no policies, if there is a gap, they are trying to fill the gap with those policies. Governance is basically based on committees who are trying to see whether the policies, number one, are being applied and applied correctly, or number two, if they are not, they are trying to draft or create or understand and identify gaps to fill those via policies. That's the difference between policy. Usually from governance committees come policies, and that are enacted in most circumstances. Um, so I hope that helps answer your question. Okay, and this is the final question I'll be taking in the interest of time, guys. 229. How do you bake in the right level of governance in the POC stage where speed, agility is the key to figuring out what works and what doesn't? And absolutely, Vasant, this is a very good question. It's a balancing act. It's a case by case, and depending on what industry the POC is being structured as well. You're absolutely right. I couldn't agree with you more there. So the idea is at the POC stages, you want to fail fast and learn fast, things of that sort. I agree. But do not base your absolute put all your eggs in that one POC or one basket. You might want to explore and experiment till you can get something tangible out of it. A POC, a proof of concept, is only a proof of concept. It's actually at a conceptual stages, and it should be like that. Yes, it should give you a flavor of it, but not the entire recipe of the particular product, right? That will happen later at iterations. So do not base your judgments on a simple POC. Please take into account uh, further testing, further adoption. What could happen is it may be a fantastic product, but it is not malleable or scalable for an ecosystem like mine, right? That's what POCs are really, really helpful to do, right? There are two things. Number one, what's out there in the market? They help you test that out. And number two, they help you see versus buy versus build kind of a situation wherein you can assess whether can you adopt, absorb it, in the sense, can you license with them? Can you contract with them in that circumstance or not? So either ways, it helps you what's out there and scout in the market. That's what it should be confined to do. Nothing more, nothing less. So far. So I really thank you for joining my talk. I really hope it was informative for you. And I really hope you got some leadership takeaways from it. And I really hope we all together build an AI ecosystem that, you know, is for the good, for the betterment of society, and for the humankind at large. Thank you so much for coming in. And thank you for all those who asked questions and participated in the chat section. I really appreciate you. Thank you once again. And my social media handles and my blog posts are pinned in the chat section. I'm happy to connect with you all. And thank you so much. Together, let's keep learning, unlearning, and relearning. And I'll leave you with that. Thank you once again.